Hey guys, I'd like to welcome you to the Kortex Media Podcast, where we navigate the fast-paced world of automotive and more. I'm your host, Korson Schmidt, founder at Kortex Media, a growth partner helping automotive companies grow by creating custom growth plans so your business can hit your goals. Today, I'm joined by Niccolo Ferrari, an automotive engineer turned EV entrepreneur whose career has traced an arc from Ducati prototype department to testing Ferraris on the world's most coveted tracks, and now to founding Voltest, a startup making rapid EV battery diagnostics accessible for dealers and buyers. Selected by Techstars in 2023, his new venture empowers the transition to electrification by building trust and value in the booming used EV market. It's great to have you on, Niccolo.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
No worries. So before really getting into it, Niccolo, what first drew you to engineering in those early days, and how did those days at mechatronics and race car design kind of spark your ambition in the auto industry as a whole?
Yeah, so I've been passionate about cars since I was 1 year old. So my dad is an entrepreneur and he's also in the automotive industry. And I've actually always loved cars, grew up building model cars, driving them on, scale tracks or RC cars. So I've always been very passionate about, cars in general. Growing up, I was more into motorcycles. I had my dirt bike. So always been, hands-on, trying to fix things, breaking things, fixing things. So it was really always been with me. Went to tracks, track days, and watch races. And we also come from an area which is called the Motor Valley. So in America, you have the Silicon Valley, where all the best, IT companies are born. In Italy, we have the Motor Valley, which is Emilia-Romagna, and we have Ferrari, Ducati, Maserati, Lamborghini, Pagani, Dallara. So the list goes on. So you understand, we are born and grow in an area where everybody knows about cars, and you see, 20 minutes from my house, you see Ferrari prototypes driving through. So that certainly had an imprinting. And then I decided to enroll in engineering. Initially, actually, I wanted to do robotics. That's why I chose mechatronics. I was more into aerospace as a field that I wanted to pursue. But then they opened a new university called the Motor Vehicle University of Emilia-Romagna. And they had this one specific course called Racing Car Design, which was spot on, really what I wanted to do. It was in collaboration with Dallara, which makes the best racing cars in the world, including Formula Indy and NASCAR chassis. So they're everywhere. And I spent time there, 2 years, graduated, and I knew that I wanted to be on track. So, testing cars, and that's what I did before creating my own company, which initially did not really revolve around cars in general. It was more on supply chain, but yeah, it was an organic trajectory, let's say.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I feel like it would be hard to go from testing supercars into launching a tech startup, especially because it's something you always wanted to do. Being close by, seeing the Ferraris drive by every day, or not even just Ferraris, but those supercars in the area would be super cool. And then to be on the track, test driving them as a prototype would be an unreal experience. So was there a specific turning point or insight that really spurred your interest in founding Voltest?
Well, ever since I was small, I've always wanted to create something of my own. So when I graduated and became a test engineer, I basically had my dream job as an employee. That was the best job I could ever have and wish for. Because every day, there were long hours, very long hours, but every day I would just go in the workshop with mechanics, electricians, and test drivers, work on the cars, drive the cars, doing data analysis.
That's
So
awesome.
it really was my dream job. We would go on tracks in different areas and it was very fun. But I knew that that was just a temporary step. I was enjoying it, but I didn't see myself in that company for many years. And I always joke a little bit and I say, if you want to buy a Ferrari, you should not work for Ferrari. And that also sparked a little bit of, entrepreneurial grit, because I knew that I wanted to achieve more things in life. And so I had a lot of fun during those 2 years in those
Per-
companies. And then during COVID, I started brainstorming ideas with other people online about, entrepreneurial ideas.
mhm.
And I remember one summer, one of my colleagues in this startup idea called me and said, "Hey, in September, I'm going to the US to found the company. Either you're in or you're out." So I said, "Okay, I've saved so much money to do this. This is the right moment. Let's go." So I quit my job the week after, and then we we took a plane, one-way ticket to San Francisco, and then the rest is history.
That's awesome. That's super exciting. Um, I can imagine working at a track, driving, testing supercars. Well, not working at a track, but working for Ferrari, having the last name Ferrari, and
That
driving
was fun,
Ferraris
yeah.
every day. That would be truly anyone who's an automotive enthusiast. I think they could be like, yeah, that's an amazing job. But for you to kind of take that next step and become an entrepreneur, kind of find your own thing, that's super amazing. So I love the vision behind it. Can you kind of give us a quick overview, give the audience a quick overview of what Voltest is, what you guys do, and what your core product is?
Yeah, sure. So actually, before creating Voltest, we were working in the electrification supply chain, which I knew nothing about because I was
Yeah.
a track testing engineer. So initially, we were doing something completely different, and then, as most founders do, we pivoted and pivoted and pivoted based on the feedback from users, from clients, or clients that we did not have at the moment at that time. And by talking with all these companies, we spoke with many different companies, including car makers. We understood there was a huge, huge issue in the electric car industry, which is the battery,
hmm
especially understanding the state of health of the battery in a very easy way and help companies that trade cars, so dealerships, auctions, but also EV owners, understand the condition of the battery in a very easy way. So as of now, there's very few ways that you can do it, and most of these ways are very slow. It takes up to 15 hours. For example,
Wow.
on Tesla, you can have the official Tesla procedure done, and it takes around 15 hours. And we created a way to do it in just a couple of minutes with a completely different system. And this system is called Voltest. So it's a small device that you connect to the OBD port. The OBD port is on every car. You connect via an app, and in 2 minutes, you get a report. And this report contains very useful information: the state of health, the estimated range, how many fast charges or slow charges the car did, the cell imbalance. And we go down to the very small details. So the individual cells that make up the battery, we go down to the voltage of each cell in most cases. So lots of details in just a few minutes. And it's quite a game changer, especially for companies that are selling cars and don't have time to wait 15 hours to sell a car. So we sell to dealerships, auctions, service shops, and it's a kit that you buy online from our website, and you just pay a subscription and you're good to go. You can test as many cars as you want.
Okay, amazing, amazing. What have been some of the most surprising findings that you've found testing all these batteries? Whether that be charging habits, whether it be cells, whether it be broken batteries. What are some of the most surprising findings you've found in batteries? So, say you have a battery that has had a bunch of fast charges versus a bunch of slow charges. What one seems to be better? How should people be charging their batteries um, to
So
get the most life out of their battery? From what you've seen.
yeah, it's a very interesting question because initially reading academia papers, we knew certain things. For example, that fast charging is harmful to the battery
hmm
because of some chemical processes that on the lithium platings that reduce the capacity of the battery. In that case, what we found out, the most important thing is that it's a mess. Honestly, there is lots of variability, probably also depending on manufacturing differences between one battery and the other. So there's a lot of variability. And what theoretically should happen, for example, fast charging compared to slow charging reduces the battery health much quicker, we found out that really there's not a strong pattern. We have tested more than 2,000 cars, of which I would say at least 1,500 are Teslas. And the crazy thing is that there's not a real difference in fast charging and slow charging. Then sometimes you find the outlier that did 100% fast charges and has a battery that is in terrible shape. Yes, but sometimes you find a battery that is only slow charged and it's in terrible shape too, probably for other reasons too. But there's not a fast charging and slow charging is not a real factor. It has a very small, very small impact. So if you plot all the data, you see a slightly downward trending line, but slightly. There's other things that maybe impact much more. For example, Tesla Model 3 performance, so the performance model, much more higher power output. Those degrade much quicker, and we saw that. We have some clients in very warm areas, such as Dubai, and the cars that have been tested there are degrading much quicker. So there's other factors that come into play, and just by guessing, you can't really understand. I mean, if you only knew one thing, for example, how many fast charges you did, that's not enough because maybe there's many other parameters that affect this. So that's why it's very important to test each car, especially for a professional person dealership, because you cannot really guess. The variability is so high.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not even that your product's great because it can help the manufacturers too. Like if they wanted to figure out the data on their batteries, what can they change to maybe make their batteries just a little bit better? You guys have data to back that up and be like, hey, this battery, a lot of them struggled with this. Then that manufacturer can go change that battery, or that battery manufacturer can change it around, make a little change, and maybe it'll make the life cycle of the battery a lot longer depending on what the issue was. So that giving that data for those manufacturers, you guys tracking that data is really going to help the manufacturers, help those batteries, help them build something that will actually last longer than it originally did. So I just want to go back a bit. So when you guys started, you guys were selected by Techstars, which is a pretty huge recognition on your end. How did that influence Voltest early momentum getting started with the startup?
So I will say that without Techstars, we wouldn't be here, mostly because of funding. So we bootstrapped everything. Then we were running out of cash. We were not generating revenue. And honestly, Techstars was the first and actually only investor in the company. So they gave us the money to keep going and also pivoting to this new product, because when we got selected into Techstars, we were working on batteries, but not with an EV battery testing product. We had a marketplace for Second Life and used EV batteries. Great idea, but the market was just too small. So we're making very, very small revenue. And Techstars was amazing because they fueled our growth. They fueled our company for a little bit more than 1 year until now we're generating enough revenue to not needing investors. And apart from that, they also helped us a lot in getting connected with companies at that time that could help us, potential investors that we never used, but it was a great experience overall. But the biggest thing was that without them, we would not be actually here doing what we do.
You would be Voltest. I just want to take you back on that. You said that you guys said you made a platform, like a marketplace for reselling old batteries. Would you guys actually go remanufacture those batteries as well, or you just was a marketplace that we use battery to another buyer kind of thing?
That's correct. So we were just connecting buyers and sellers as a pure marketplace. The idea was great. Then we also added many other things. So it became more a management platform for OEMs, for car makers to manage their EV battery inventory. And we spoke with 11 car makers. They all said it was a great idea, that they would need that, but in 3 years, in 5 years from now, the volume of end-of-life batteries was just not there. So that's why we then pivoted to the first life of the battery and not the end of life.
Okay, I love that. Looking ahead, when batteries do degrade and they do end up failing, what solutions have you seen out there for the world and the environment for these EV batteries, that we can reuse them so they're not sitting in landfill, so to say? Because that's one of the biggest misconceptions I hear is what's going to happen with the batteries. Are they worse than gasoline vehicles because of the batteries? I know you might not know specifically because you're not a battery pro. I just wanted to hear your opinion on if you've had conversations with manufacturers maybe about this.
Yeah, actually, we had a lot of conversations with car makers, but also recycling companies and repurposing companies. And it's cool, very cool to see that there's many of them uh, that are working in the end of life and how to best use the end of life of these batteries. So yes, the extraction of minerals and the first manufacturing of the battery is very capital intensive and environmentally impactful. But the awesome thing is that you can recycle 95% of the materials of the battery. You cannot
Nice.
recycle carbon fuels that you just burned to dry, right? So you can recycle lots of battery, and even before recycling, what they say is the 4R principle, which is reuse, repurpose, remanufacture, recycle. So before going to recycle, you can fix the battery if it's broken. You can repurpose the battery, which means getting the battery from a car and using it in a stationary energy storage, for example. You can remanufacture it, so meaning that you get the battery, you refix them, and you reproduce batteries from the same batteries, and then you go to recycle. If nothing else you can do, the battery is leaking, I don't know, you can go to recycle. And with the recycling, you get all the materials out.
Amazing. That's good to know because I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions we hear is what's going to happen with those batteries. So I'm glad that you spoke about this. Oh, the EV market is always growing quickly. It's been growing quickly the past few years, right? So what are some of the biggest challenges that buyers and sellers face with the battery health transparency? And why is it such a game changer now that they can have that battery health transparency using Voltest?
I like this question. So the interesting thing is that 99% of the car dealerships give no transparency on the condition of a battery of a used car for two reasons. First, they don't have the tool and the knowledge, so they don't know that they can show that and how to do it. And that's exactly where we're working on, what we're working on. And the second thing is that some of them don't want to show the detail because we've heard it personally that they don't want to show the state of health on a used car because if it's 85% state of health, which means it's still really good, the uninformed buyer may think that it's not good value. So there is a lot of education that needs to be done on all sides. We must educate the dealers and the dealers must educate the consumer. It's a huge effort. We're working a lot on that, even on social media, because it's very important for us as a business, but also for the EV owners. And what I think is that bringing transparency is the best way to, debunk some myths on EV batteries. And so we have, apart from the testing device, we also have a set of integrations on dealership listings that answer the most common questions that all consumers have. How much am I going to save by driving an electric car? What is the range? Can you show me the range on a map? Where can I drive with this car with one charge? How much warranty do I have on the battery? What happens after it? So all of these questions, if answered, make the decision making much easier. And also the dealership moves inventory quicker, which is ultimately what they want. They need to move cars as quickly as possible. And most salespeople don't even know how to answer these questions. So we do it for them. And I think transparency is so important because EVs are just a means of transportation, and they're quite similar to other cars, but they have their flaws, right? You know that you need to wait a little bit more to charge and get more range. But how much? So that's why we answer, we have a widget for fast charging and slow charging. How much time do I have to wait to charge the car? So all of these questions are important to be answered and must be answered by everybody in the field.
For sure. I think going off your point is that it's a knowledge barrier between you as a battery pro. That's what I'm going to call you, because you guys know the health scores. You know what batteries are struggling with and what they aren't, and you know the scores of them. Where if the consumer and dealership don't know much about it, they might want to keep it just a little bit more quiet, like the dealer wants to, like you said. So
Yeah,
they don't want to keep that transparency. But if that dealership can open up and be transparent with that client that wants to trade their vehicle in or selling a client, I feel like it's going to create a lot more trust within a dealership, helping them create better relationships, create more client retention, and keep clients coming back for future electric vehicles as well. Because from what we know, we're going to see a lot more EVs coming out. And if dealerships can make that trust now with using Voltest, being transparent with the battery health and everything else within the battery, those clients will come back for that next EV vehicle because they can trust the dealership and know that they're showing the truth, they're telling the truth, using Voltest to back
yeah.
it up.
And also, if I can add one thing, customers can score some great deals on used EVs that are out of warranty, because even if they're out of warranty, they can now have um, transparency on the condition of an old battery. So I'll just give you an example. Mike, cut this part and I'll say it again because I
Yeah,
didn't explain it correctly.
no worries. I'll write
So,
it down.
okay. hmm I'll just
You're good.
repeat the sentence in a clearer way. Okay, and then if I can just add one thing, is that many consumers are afraid of buying used EVs because they don't know anything about the battery, and because many EVs right now are reaching the 6 to 8 years old mark. And after 8 years old, the battery is out of warranty. And a battery replacement is extremely expensive. That's why you
Mm-hmm.
need information like Voltest, especially as a professional, because one battery replacement is 15 grand. You're going to lose lots of money in your business. Also, as a consumer, you don't want to buy used EV out of warranty and then you buy a battery that is cooked and then you have to cash out $15,000. With a tool such as Voltest, you can find older EVs with very healthy batteries and avoid the older EVs that have a bad battery, right? So I'll just give you an example. My co-founder, he bought a 2013 Tesla Model S. It was in great shape. We tested it yesterday and still has 82% of state of health. So he bought it and he made an informed decision and he got a super low price. I mean, he paid it, I don't know, 10 grand for a
Mm-hmm.
Tesla Model S with 70,000 miles. Amazing
Wow.
price. But he did it because he knew that the battery was good. Okay. I would never do it if I didn't know what the battery is like. And I think nobody would because the risk is
For
just
sure.
too high. But you can score some great deals. And for consumers, that's amazing.
Yeah, if you can use that to, especially in the future, right? When we're going to see a lot more of them, and you have to start buying these more and more often used EV vehicles. If you can have that data to back it up, be like, hey, this one has a decent battery life, this one doesn't. Let's not go with that, because 15 grand is a lot of money to replace a battery, and vehicle manufacturers aren't making it easy to replace these batteries. So if you can get one that's going to last a little bit longer, definitely the way to go. And with combustion engines, you can only go off the mileage. Where EV, there's like you said, there's a lot of other factors that can change the battery life rather than like a combustion engine. There's some, like maybe they
Yeah.
don't change their oil often enough, or they don't keep up on maintenance enough. But usually combustion engines it all depends on what motor you're using. But if you're using good engine, say like the 1.9 TDI out of the Volkswagens in the 2000s, they'll last forever, even if you didn't keep up on maintenance, because they're a solid built engine. So that all depends on what was built. But now you have batteries, and anything can really, the one can be terrible and one can be super well. So it all depends on the battery. You said earlier that the heats from Dubai really mess with some of the batteries, and it can take a transfer off of the battery. How have you noticed? I don't know if you've tested it in the cold areas like Canada. How has the cold really been affecting these batteries?
Unfortunately, we don't have many cases. So we have customers, one in Toronto and others in the UK, which is a little bit colder. So we don't have much data, but not really bad. I think it appears to be heat, the main driver of
Okay.
degradation. Not the main driver, but compared to cold, heat is a little bit of a more stronger impact. But the data, for us at least, is not there yet.
Yeah.
We would love to be in Norway and having customers in Norway. We don't have any at the moment, but we're curious to see in the future these patterns, because I think that's extremely interesting. And one thing that is very important, we talk a lot about the dangers and the risk of having a bad battery, paying a lot of money to replace it. But the cool thing is that these batteries are super well built. We see batteries with 400,000. So yesterday I was talking with one of our colleagues, and we tested the oldest and highest mileage Tesla that we ever saw. It was 600,000 kilometers, and it still had 60% of state of health. So it's still 60% of the original range and quite a well-balanced pack after 600,000 miles. That's really good. So
That is.
Yes, it can happen, of course, and you must be aware of bad batteries, but in reality, batteries are really well built. So that's a good thing.
For sure. Yeah. With a vehicle like that, like you just said, you have a 600,000 mile Tesla with still a good 60% battery life left. Do you think that comes by using as much range as possible, letting it charge until full, not leaving it on the charger all night kind of thing, like letting the battery go down, charging it back up, and don't leave it on the charger too long? Do you think that's the best cycle for a battery? Like, I'm assuming you guys track charge time as well, how long it's on the charger versus when it's just stagnant?
Yeah, we track the energy, the amount of energy that comes in the battery with fast charging, the amount of energy with slow charging, and also other parameters like regenerative braking energy, how much energy you recovered. So those things. I think that it's interesting to see that there, of course, are some things that influence a lot the health of the battery. Charging is one of them, especially as you said, leaving the car charged at 100%. It's quite detrimental. Leaving the car actually discharged at 0%, is quite detrimental. But if you cycle and you charge it overnight at your place and you go to 100%, and then you wake up, it just reached 100%, you unplug it and start driving, that's harmless. That impact has zero impact. The impact that you get is if you keep the car charged for 1 week and you don't drive it. That's a thing that you should avoid if possible. But yeah, charging the car to 100% does not necessarily damage the battery. Is how long it stays there or how long it stays at 0%. That's why they always suggest to charge between 20 and 80%. But at the same time, if you bought a battery that is 70 kilowatt hour, why should you use, 60% of it just from 20 to 80%? You may want to use it from 0 to 100. Just be smart with the pattern. When it's staying at 0%, how long at 0%, and how long at 100%.
For sure. I love that. And we're going to learn a lot more about batteries here in the future as well, because even with hybrids, a lot of people don't know what is the best way to do it. A lot of people don't specifically know. So I think we're going to hear a lot more from the manufacturers or from people like yourself in the field, and educating the consumers, that the clients that you guys will have, and the clients of EV vehicles. Looking ahead for Voltest, what are some of the main goals that you guys have for the company? Where do you want to take the company? Where do you see it in a few years? Is there new expansions, or are you guys just looking to kind of really get in around the world and help these individuals, help these dealerships, help these shops diagnose battery life within vehicles?
So we have a very ambitious roadmap, to be honest. What we say is that we want to become the number one reference point for everything that is EV ownership, especially in the use space, bringing clarity, but also bringing support to owners, dealerships, and service shops. So to do this, to become the reference, of course, we need to grow. We're a small company. It's a small team. Our main focus is the US. We have customers a little bit around the world. We have customers in the UK, in Arabia, in Australia, but it's just the beginning. We launched the product last fall, so it's a little bit more than 1 year that we launched the product. So it's a very fresh product, and the growth has been very interesting, but we know that there's a huge ocean that we should, conquer. So the first step for us is just, keep growing, getting more dealers, and slowly become a reference point for EV battery health in the consumer space as well. That's why we're very active on social media, on TikTok, Instagram, because the consumer needs to be educated, and the first who, becomes the reference and asks, you ask for the Carfax when you want to buy a used car.
Yeah.
Why not asking for a Voltest, right? That's what we want to do. And
that's awesome.
Then, helping consumers is very important. But then also, we know that there's a big lack, and there will be a big lack of servicing dedicated to EV repairs. There's going to be so many batteries that will need to be fixed in the future. That's for sure. And there's basically the dealership network has very little experience, or it's extremely expensive to have a battery replaced over there.
For sure.
And the independent shops are just a few in the whole US. So that's another huge pain point that the market will see. And we believe we can be working on that too and solving that problem too.
For sure. That's, I love the vision behind it. I love what you guys are doing. And I love where you guys are trying to take the company. Even being a year in,
Thanks.
You guys seem like you have quite a bit of market already grabbed up, and you're educating the consumers, which is some of the best. For marketing aspects, that's the best content you can put out. If you can educate your consumers, educate your clients, people are going to follow you because they want to learn more and more, especially with something that's going to be the future. That's all we've heard for the past 5 to 10 years is EV, EV, EV. So you guys are on the right side of the trend for sure. I like the point that you brought up about dealerships. It's going to be super expensive to get batteries replaced. And then back to repair shops, there's only a few that are actually repairing specific EV vehicles. Do you see this as more of with the shop side of thing, do you see it more as a knowledge barrier that these repair shops don't want to get the knowledge, or they just can't find the knowledge to work on these EV vehicles, or they're maybe a little bit scared because they don't know much about the EV market in general? What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. It's a combination of these two things. If you're a mechanic that has worked 20 years on petrol engines and know nothing about electric cars, you need to start from zero, basically. You have zero knowledge on that. And it's not rocket science, but, you need to learn. You need to train. Sure. There's plenty of places, especially in Europe, that train on just the safety of the battery. It's a high voltage battery, of course. You can die if you do the wrong thing by electrocution, right? So you need to know what you're doing. I personally, right now, would not work on a battery myself because I never done any proper training, but as well as many other workshops. Most of them have no idea about what to do. So that's why you usually bring it to the OEM, to the dealership, Tesla, Hyundai. They offer the repair service. But again, a replacement battery from Hyundai and Kia is $25,000 MSRP. So it's very expensive.
That's crazy, yeah.
So yeah, education and training is what right now is blocking and underserving this market.
Definitely. Totally agree with you.
And also, right now, there's not many broken cars to be fixed. It's not very common, but they will in 5 years. It's not in 15, 20 years. It's in 5 years.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. I just want to go back to your beginning when you worked with Ferrari, driving on the track every day. What
Mhm.
was your favorite Ferrari to drive that you got to, or what is your favorite Ferrari in general? What was your favorite one to drive?
So my favorite Ferrari in general and my favorite Ferrari to drive was the 296 GTB and GTS, which was my first project, the first project I worked on. Amazing team, great friends there, and the car is just something else, something else. I remember really being first driving it, but also being a passenger with test drivers and who really know how to drive a car, because us normal humans don't know how to properly drive that kind of car. You need
Yeah.
to, train and learn. It was just something beyond my comprehension. Performances for a road car was just sublime. Small, fun, reactive. I remember one test we had to do 60 launch controls consecutively. So we
That's
did
crazy.
0 to 200 60 times. It was just exhilarating. Another car that I really came to love, because then I moved project, was the Puro Sangue, so the SUV. Everybody was saying, "Oh, the Ferrari SUV, they sold their soul to marketing." That car is amazing. You may not like the height of the car if you're not into SUVs, but that car is
Hmm.
so good to drive. The innovation that they put in the suspension made it performing in such a way that compared to a Lamborghini Urus, for example, we were
Yeah.
4 seconds faster on a lap on wet handling conditions. And one of my favorite experiences there was going to the tire testing facility and being for 25 minutes sideways on the wet handling track, which is a track that is all wet, and you test the tires with this V12 engine screaming in the front because the engine is in the front. It was just a great car. I was surprised by how well they can drive. Yeah, it's
For
amazing.
sure.
And the cars I worked on became my favorite cars because you
Yeah.
put effort in making it better and you gave your small contribution for something that you see on the road sometimes.
That's
And
so
you
cool.
can say, oh wow, the tires, I contributed in, developing the tires, or I contributed with the suspension, or the aerodynamic homologation, those small things, and many others, like gearbox testing. I did a lot of gearbox testing. So
That's awesome.
it was fun. The handbrake,
No.
you know, testing the handbrake, those
Yeah.
things that you do and nobody thinks about, but you have to. So
Yeah.
these are
That's
my favorite cars. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. It's kind of like I'm a big Volkswagen enthusiast. So
Really
I
nice.
work on my go-to engine is the VR6 engine. It's my favorite engine because it's the only one I've worked on,
Yeah.
right? So
Hmm.
just like you,
Exactly.
right? You put the work in, you built that whole car at the end of the day, helping other people drive it as well. Where us as little automotive enthusiasts, little tinkering mechanics, we build our cars, and that becomes our favorite car because we built it our way. So, having your
Yeah.
experience is truly amazing, man. That would be such a cool experience. I couldn't imagine.
Thanks.
It's
Yeah,
awesome.
and I'm sure you understand, the attachment to something you worked on. For example, in your
Yeah,
case, it's the VR6, a great engine, by the way. I saw some videos about people just tuning the hell out of it.
yeah. They're crazy. They're crazy.
Mm,
It's a fun engine, and it sounds great. Maybe not as good as a V12, but it still sounds great for a
mm,
little 6-cylinder.
yeah.
But
Actually, the 296 GTB and GTS are V6.
are they? They're twin
Yeah,
turbo
yeah, they're
V6
a
then.
twin turbo V6, uh, and it sounds really well. It sounds like they call it the piccolo V12, the small V12, because the pitch of the sound
Hmm.
is has got the same frequencies of a V12. So it actually sounds really good. Mm.
That's awesome. Yeah. Man, cars are so cool. I could talk about them all
Yeah,
day if I really wanted to.
absolutely.
Um, throughout your journey so far with Voltest, through your journey in the automotive industry, what are some of the most important lessons that you've learned going forward in your journey?
Well, I It's funny because I wrote a LinkedIn post about this last week. 5 things that I learned. Honestly, being an entrepreneur is quite tough. It's lonelier and harder than you would ever think, uh, because you know it's going to be hard, but it's actually going to be much harder. And you're going to be lonelier than you expect because my co-founder is in the US and it's a small team and there's no boss telling you, wake up, do this.
Yeah.
It's just yourself. And initially you've got a lot of motivation and excitement, but then motivation transforms in determination. You know, even when you don't, you're tired, you don't want to, you know, put in 100%, you have to. You have to, because it all depends on you, especially at this early stage where we're at. So that's the first thing that, shaped me and my character, knowing that you have to keep pushing. And if that day you can only give 60%, you better give 100% of that 60%. No, not all the days are the best days ever, but you just have to do one small step at a time, and you need to be patient. I'm a very impatient person, and doing this taught me to be very patient because I would have expected to do an exit in 4 years.
Yeah.
I'm at the third year of my journey, and I know that I won't do an exit next year. So those things are very important, and it's not for everybody, and it's okay. It doesn't mean that you're better or worse than someone who's doing something else. It's just some people are really, have the attitude to do this, and some others don't. And especially when hiring, during your first hires, we made some mistakes, and you learn from those mistakes.
For sure.
And so all of those things, make you stronger, make you more aware that moving forward, you're certainly going to make so many more mistakes, but hopefully by learning, you will make less and less and less. So that's certainly a thing. And the other thing I say is, I'm so excited. Yeah, it's tough, but it's so freaking exciting to do something that you love and that you don't wake up angry every day because you're doing a job that you don't like.
Yeah.
Yes, there's bad moments. There's moments where you work so much that you really want to just, throw the laptop out of a window, but it's super exciting. It's very exciting because it's creative. Entrepreneurs must be creative in everything from coding to making a TikTok video to talk about something. Find a way to find a new client. You have to be creative, and that's very fun. Makes it, very exciting. So going forward, I know that it's going to be tough, but it's also very exciting, and I'm very optimistic about that.
That's amazing. That's perfect. Those are some of the best words of advice I've heard on this show
Thanks.
so far, because they're true, and you've went through the experience, and you're still in the experience, which is the best part, because you can look back on the 3 tough years that you've had, and you'd be like, "Hey, this is what I did. This is what I messed up." You're telling other people not to make the same mistakes, and it is a tough thing to do, and it's not for everyone. I like how you put that in there, because it does take a lot of work. It does take a lot of determination to complete these goals and keep driving towards these goals. And it's really easy to look the other way and just go get a job. But if you're really invested in entrepreneurship, you need to be determined to finish what you're here to do. And you're not always going to finish, right? You're always going to make pivots like you guys did. Starting out with the used battery marketplace, like you guys were doing. You're always going to pivot. You're always going to, the market's never going to stay the same, right? You always need to pivot. You always need to make changes, from customer expectation to your expectation, right? So great advice.
Yeah, it's a continuous improvement. And you never know what you're gonna see next, because when I started out, I told you I was doing a supply chain for electric mobility. Then we pivoted to battery marketplace, then to battery marketplace plus this, management platform, then to Voltest. It took us 2 years, and 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I would have never thought to have a product like Voltest and be doing what we're doing.
For sure.
It's just unexpected,
Yeah. But you it brought you on this journey, and look where you guys are now, starting getting
Mhm.
Voltest really
Yeah,
up and
it's
moving around the
the
world.
right
And
direction, hopefully.
yeah, exactly. Well, Nicole, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hearing your insights, your experience, your Ferrari background. It's something you don't hear about every day. So it was great speaking with you. It was great hearing your experience, your insights, and it's just picking up a little bit of knowledge from you. So I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. It was very fun to talk about this, and I'm sure you're gonna have a lot of success too with your business.
Thank you. Thank you.